So I thought I'd do just a quick review on the Francis Gabreski, I think that's how you pronounce it, book. There's a lot of interesting little tidbits in here. There's a lot of detail on, what the different types of ammo, the different variants of P-47 he flew. So it was a pretty good book. This author here, you can tell, he's written a number of books on World War II aviation, like in the China, Burma, India theater, and he's done some other World War II books as well. So it's good to have someone who had a good knowledge of the subject tell this story, I think, as well. So, and they mentioned, and there were a number of things about him I didn't really know. I didn't know he was at Pearl Harbor as well. He almost did not get through flight school. So I guess he was not like really one of those pilots who just got a hang of it immediately. I think I remember the Stuka pilot, Riddell, was in kind of a similar situation. He almost didn't get through the initial flight school. He almost washed out. But there's some interesting detail in here that they mention. They preferred, I think it was the armor-piercing incendiary ammunition, which came out later in the war. They preferred that as opposed to regular armor-piercing that went straight through the German planes. There was also some interesting information that he flew with a Polish squadron before he was flying the P-47s with the U.S. Army Air Force. So that was interesting as well. He's from Poland, and he spoke the language. He's not from Poland. He was born in the U.S., but his parents were from Poland. And then also later in the war, the Polish pilots, I guess they were flying a Spitfire that did not have sufficient range to be engaged in a lot of dogfights with the Luftwaffe. I guess this was like early 44, somewhere around there. So he was able to get them to come fly with him in his squadron, flying P-47s. And this is the P-47 he flew at the end for 2 months, and then he crash landed. But yeah, they were able to fly with him. They were part of the British, the RAF, but the RAF would not pay them since they were flying with the Americans. So the American pilots would hand a hat around at the end of like a mission and pay the Polish pilots kind of like off the books. So that was interesting. He also flew in the Korean War, which I had known. I read some books about MiG Alley and whatnot, and he comes up, of course. There was one other interesting thing. Well, this plane, he mentions all the planes he flew. This one, he only flew for 2 months, from May to July 1944, when he crash landed. So this is the D-25 variant. Of course, pitted tubes broken off. But I happen to have this plane. It's like a die-cast model I've had forever. And I didn't know that when he crash landed, I assumed, because I knew he was strafing a German airfield, I thought he had just strafed a German airfield and was low and hit the propeller and crash landed right there. But he hit the airfield and then he flew for quite some time, and then the plane had to crash land, and he was on the run for several days. So that was interesting as well, just kind of the attempts to escape. And then another one of his pilots thought the reason that he had crash landed he had hit the ground with his P-47 is they thought he might not have been used to this variant, because apparently it held more gas. And when he was strafing, I think he was strafing a Heinkel or some type of two-engine bomber at the end, he was too low, or he overshot, so he lowered the stick a little, and as soon as he did that, his propeller hit the ground. So it was thought maybe he wasn't used to flying this version where the center of gravity was slightly off, but apparently he had been flying this plane for 2 months. So that was just kind of a theory, but interesting nonetheless. But yeah, it's not a long book at all, really. I think it's less than 300 pages. Yeah, quite a lot less. And then you have 2 sections of pictures. So here's that plane right there. And this is the one I think he flew the most of. Yeah, the D-11. So some interesting pictures in here. And then with the P-40s, which is what he flew in Hawaii. So definitely a good book if you can pick this up. Of course, getting from the library. So many of these books, like 99% of the books I'm interested in, the library has them. So I try not to add too many. But yeah, it's an easy read if you're interested in the subject.